Hey, I've got great news. I'm opening an online store. Now, this spot weld cutter bit that I've used in the last video, plus I'm going to be using in this video to separate body panels, making your life really easy, is going to be available in that store. I'm going to be offering hardware, tools, novelties. Check it out when it's up and going. But until then, if you want to email me at goozyfabrication@yahoo.com, you can place an order for your spot weld cutter bit. Let's get into the video. Hey, this is Robert here at Goozy Fabrication, and I've got a great video for my DIY guys and gals working on your projects in your own garage. I want to give you some professional tips and tricks, and this video today is going to be a part 2, a follow-up video to the previous video last week. So in the last video, I separated and removed the floor pan from the inner structure, inner bracing. Now the floor pan was one thickness, maybe 18 to 20 gauge. The bracing, well, it was a little bit thicker. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to separate these body panels of the same thickness. Now you have to approach it a different way. So I'm going to show you some additional techniques, tricks, tips, and give you some advice. Really going to help you out. Now, where this method comes from is the collision industry. Any of my collision guys out there, you already know. And this is probably what you do. Okay, last episode we used this method on our 71 CUDA. And what we did, we removed the floor pan. We roughed it out. Now our braces and our front frame rails, they're in great shape. The supports, they're in good shape. We don't need to change those. We only need to change the floor pan. And we removed that floor pan with this. All right, so I have a piece that I saved from the old floor pan. And you can see where we used the air hammer to bust that apart. Yeah, that looks really damaged, but on the parent metal or the brace, this is what we did, and this is the result. Okay, sometimes there's just a little bit of the remnant of the floor or whatever panel it is. A lot of times the weld will just, you can cut it or bust it through and it's almost flush. And with just a little bit of cleanup, this is an area that I cleaned up. I mean, it took 2 minutes, and this is what I'm left with. Instead of having a ton of holes that have been drilled in this, that's a bad idea. And that's the reason for this video. Okay, now, there are tricks to this, and I'm going to show you some of them whenever you use air hammer. So, like I mentioned, coming out of the collision industry, hey man, time is money, and materials, that's huge these days. That's a major cost. My material costs in the last couple of years went up 30 to 50% anyway. And in the collision industry, I use this tool exclusively. I hardly ever use something else, a different method for separating body panels. Now, the reason I'm doing this video is I had quite a few comments saying, well, yeah, you can use it on something like this where there's a thick base, and you can remove the thin sheet metal only in that situation. Well, that's not true. I'm going to show you in this video that you can separate thin gauge sheet metal from thin gauge sheet metal. Hey, let's get into it. I want to give you a resistance welder demo first because I really think that's going to help you. I'm a visual person. When I can see something, see how it works, that tremendously helps me. Okay, so we've got some thin gauge sheet metal. Got our little material thickness gauge. You can get these at any welding supply store. We are working with 18 gauge sheet metal. So we're at the factory building the car. Both of our body panels are where they need to be, and then we weld. and that is a spot weld or resistance weld. Now this is a very, very sound weld. So now that we've seen how it's welded together, now we can make a strategy on how we can separate that. This is the coupon that I resistance welded. We're going to get it set up, and then we're going to take it apart. I'm going to show you some techniques, some things you do, some things you don't do. You can adjust the amount of impact you're having with the air hammer. That is very important. You know, if you're doing the floor pan and you've got a thick brace, you can have it up quite a bit, and that's what you want because you can just plow right through it. But you can't be a bull in a china shop when you're doing thin on thin. It doesn't work like that. So first thing, thin on thin. Turn it down. Approach angle. What I mean by that, we want to be in line with the weld so we can cut it straight on. Now if my bit, now if you look at this bit, it's not straight. If this was turned over, or I was at an angle like this, that's going to destroy a lot of stuff. It's going to rip a hole right through it. You want to be in line, the approach angle. So this is huge. You can use the air hammer as a pry bar to gain an entrance spot. You need a way to get in between the panels. Usually they're really close together, but if you use this, shove it in, then you can lift up with leverage with the air hammer. You're not going to hurt the air hammer. Now you can gain access to the weld nugget. Okay, so let's say that we are in between this panel and we have access to that weld nugget now. Now we can use the air tool to separate it. We're here, we hit it, we're watching that weld nugget because there's a really good chance the first time you hit it, it's going to start breaking, or it will break that weld and the panel will separate immediately. If it doesn't, you want to be watching the weld nugget. If it starts to, the weld nugget is hard, and because it's been welded, it's harder than the surrounding metal. So it's going to move as a unit. If you see it start to twist, stop, because you're getting ready to rip it out. You're going to do a lot of damage. So what you'd want to do in that case, you're watching it, it's not going to go really easy. So you'd hit it here. Then you would move around, hit it here, hit it here, hit it here, hit it from multiple angles. And what I'm doing is I'm cutting all the way around that, and that's how you do it. That's how you do thin sheet metal. That's the trick. You have to be paying attention, and you have to have access. You have to have the right angle. If you have those things, then you will be successful and you will be able to do this. Okay, so here's our coupon that we just separated. Let's take a look at it. You can see where the chisel bit, where I worked around it and cut all the way, well, cut around it, and that's what helped me to separate that weld. Now let's take a look at the parent metal, or the part we wanted to save. Yeah, ask any collision guy if you can separate thin gauge sheet metal from thin gauge sheet metal with a hammer. Well, if they know what they're doing, the answer is always yes. Okay, so now that you've seen me do this, I've got a question for you. Hey man, leave the question or leave the answers in the comments. What we're going to do Let's pretend that this is the resistance weld there. And we're going to use the traditional or usual method. There's a lot of different methods. You can use, guys can use a hammer and a really strong, hardened, flat chisel and break the weld too. But that's a ton of time. I'd rather use an air hammer. So let's check out the traditional. Okay, so imagine having 50 of these holes. Which method do you want to use? And it's completely up to you. Hey, if you want to put a bunch of holes or try not to go through the top sheet metal so that you don't put this hole, be my guest. You will not be successful every time. My method, or it's not my method, it's a method I learned. Give it a try anyway. So I wanted to save the best for last. I've given you a demo on new sheet metal that's a resistance weld, how to break it. But then I found probably the most difficult resistance weld to cut or to break. Okay, this panel is a lower door section and it has a brace behind it, this open area, and you can see how the metal has a little flange or step down. That's really difficult to get a straight on correct angle on that to separate it. Opening it up. We don't want to try to take it all in one bite. We want to work around the resistance weld. And there you go. Okay, that's the piece that's going to be replaced. Doesn't matter if it ripped out a little bit or not. It's going in the trash. Let's see our brace behind, because that's the ultimate test. If we did not damage it, then this is a successful method to use. And it's a proven method to use. Hey, very minimum distortion. This brace, yeah, I'm going to replace this brace anyway, but if I can separate that brace from the door structure of the same thickness of metal without destroying it, yeah, that's a win. So yes, you can. So all the naysayers who say you can't do this method on thin gauge, well, I just showed you that you can. And if I can do it here, in the worst place, I can do it on any place on the car or vehicle. So we're going to confirm. We've got our material thickness gauge, 18 gauge sheet metal for the inner door structure, and that little bracket brace. $18 gauge. There you have it. Hey, here's another tool for your toolbox. I'd like to take time to say thank you to all of our supporters, followers. Hit that like and subscribe. Leave some comments. Share the video. Help the algorithm. And I hope this helps you DIY guys and gals working on your own vehicles at home. Another tool for the toolbox. And hey, as always, thank you for watching.